Finally, a bishop backtracked, removing a figure whose presence seemed cumbersome and inexplicable. It wasn't a decision made from above, but the result of a strong and united reaction from the faithful. And this is precisely where this episode challenges us. It shows that when people aren't silent, something truly can change. Stay until the end, because what happened tells us what we can do today to change things. In these years, the faithful people have witnessed with dismay a drift that seems to have no end. Churchmen tainted by serious crimes are reinstated in positions of power, while the bishops most faithful to Catholic doctrine are ousted without trial and without explanation. In Rome, mercy is spoken of as if it were the new dogma, repeated everywhere and in every document. But it is a mercy that appears selective, bent to the logic of power, and no longer linked to justice. But today comes some good news. The incident that ignited the city of Toulouse has become the symbol of an entire system. In July 2025, Archbishop Guy de Keramel announced the appointment of Father Dominique Spina as Chancellor of the diocese, a position of responsibility that involves managing the most confidential documents, safeguarding official records, and having the power to sign crucial documents, a position, in short, that requires a clean, undisputed reputation. Yet Spina carried with him a past that was impossible to ignore. In 2006, he had been sentenced to 5 years in prison, one of which was suspended, for events dating back to the 1990s, when he had been involved in very serious matters with a 16-year-old boy. Not a rumor, not a gossip, but a sentence pronounced by a court and recorded in black and white. Despite this, de Keramel not only did not back down when he was appointed, but also publicly defended his decision. He spoke of an act of mercy, a sign of hope for those who, despite having paid their debt to justice, live stigmatized and rejected by society. Words that might have found understanding in the context of a private conversion, but which were jarring in the face of such a delicate appointment. Because the Chancellor is not a secondary or symbolic position, it is an operational role that touches the very heart of diocesan administration. And entrusting it to a man with such a past seemed to many not as an act of mercy, but as a challenge to common sense, a sign of contempt for the faithful and for those who have truly suffered. Thus, what should have been presented as a sign of redemption has turned into a provocation in the eyes of the Catholic people. Further proof that in this church of our time, mercy is no longer administered as a divine gift, but as a political tool distributed to whomever is convenient. The reactions were immediate. In Toulouse, but also throughout France, the faithful raised their voices with a resolve rarely seen in recent years. Lay associations committed to defending the dignity of the Church have issued harsh statements, openly describing an act of contempt toward the victims and a public humiliation inflicted by those who, on the contrary, should have protected them. The Association for the Memory and Prevention of Scandalous Events in the Western Catholic Church has compiled in black and white the dates, names, and testimonies already delivered to Pope Francis in 2023, when the issue had still been brought before the Church's leadership through official documents. It wasn't a matter of street protests, but of an orderly, composed denunciation, carried forward with the seriousness of those who seek not summary justice, but the truth. We kept quiet, We endured, now that's enough. This was the tone of the faithful, who did not seek political outcry, but showed they were no longer willing to put up with incomprehensible decisions. The pressure wasn't confined to local realities. On August 11th, 2025, the French Episcopal Conference itself, in an official statement signed by prominent figures, asked the Archbishop to reconsider the appointment. It was a rare, almost unprecedented gesture which made clear how the scandal was tearing apart not only the laity, but also the Episcopal College. Ultimately, the pressure proved unsustainable. On August 16, 2025, after weeks of escalating protests, Archbishop Guy de Caramel publicly announced that he had revoked Father Dominique Spina's appointment. A decision presented as necessary to avoid divisions among the bishops and to avert a direct clash between those who supported the choice and those who condemned it. In reality, the U-turn appeared to everyone as proof that the voice of the faithful, when raised in unity and with dignity, can still change things. The Archbishop himself admitted that his decision had been perceived as an affront to the victims and asked for forgiveness, implicitly acknowledging that he had touched a raw nerve in the contemporary church. It was no longer enough to talk about mercy. Faced with an indignant people and an Episcopal conference in turmoil, it was inevitable to take a step back. At the same time, the name of the new Chancellor, Father Leopold Biocchi, who will take up office in September 2025, was announced. With this gesture, the Spina case was formally closed, but not without leaving behind a trail of deep questions and wounds. Because, while it's true that the revocation marked a victory for those who continued to demand justice, the bitter evidence remains that the appointment was carefully considered and defended to the very end, as if the people's memory could be trampled upon without consequences. This story demonstrates that God's people are neither blind nor mute. The logic of mercy, used as a political excuse, has finally found a way out in the firm voice of the faithful, who have responded quietly, but with dignity and courage. It was not the Vatican palaces that corrected the error, but the united strength of those who, from below, refused to bow to injustice. The Toulouse case is not just the story of a revoked appointment. It is a sign that when Catholics rally around the truth, no power strategy can prevail. Today, more than ever, we see that the Church does not belong to bureaucrats or diplomats, but to the faithful people who guard the memory and defend the doctrine. The Archbishop's reversal is not a concession. It is a victory for those who have chosen to raise their heads. And if this people can remain united, nothing will prevent justice and truth from shining again, even in the darkest times. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.